Yeah, it does. It doesn't sound very good at all. Yep, Phil's going to do it. Yep. Okay, welcome along everyone to our Finance and Performance meeting for the 27th of November. We'll start with the opening karakias. You want to stand? Whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā tata ki tā, ehi aki aniana, te akura, he tu, he oka, he hoku, ti hei, mauri ora. Great. I've got apologies for lateness from the Mayor and Councillor Goff, and I'd say the others will be here. Yeah, that might be one now. Yep, we don't. Cool.
A partial
for Pauline. So Mel's happy to move that. I'm happy to second it. All in favour? Great. That's carried. The declarations of interest, we'll just note those there around Civic Building, Christchurch NZ, and the like. So that's all good. The minutes from the previous meeting, I'm happy to move those. Mark's happy to second. All in favour? Against? That's carried. And we'll go to public forum, and we've got one public forum from Hayley Julietta, so do you want to come on up? Yeah, great. Yep, and I think we've got a presentation as well. Brilliant. Welcome, Hayley. No worries.
Oh,
I think you're good now.
I'm good? Cool.
Excellent. We're in your hands.
Excellent. So, yes, I'm Hayley Julietta, the chairperson of the Food Resilience Network, and this is David Watson, one of our lovely board members. I'm not going to go too much into the project today, but because I just wanted to cover off over the last 4 months since we had our loan application, and there's been a whole lot of misunderstandings about this project, and I really wanted to just cover those off today. So the Food Resilience Network is the kaitiaki of the Edible Canterbury Charter, which the Christchurch City Council has signed, and it's also the project lead for the Atako Orchard, which is a anchor project post-earthquakes. So I just want to take you back in time, really. You might recall the Christchurch Central Recovery Plan. That plan was put together by the government through SERA, Christchurch City Council, Christchurch NZ and Mana Whenua. Central to that plan was around listening to the people, and that was done through a really lengthy consultation process called Share an Idea. Over 100,000 people contributed to the Share an Idea to have a say in how we wanted our central city to look. Some of the key things out of that were green spaces and to reduce the size of the central city. So you can only imagine the conversation that went ahead in Wellington after this was, shit, we've reduced the size of the central city, we've put a big stadium at one end and a Metro Sports at the other and a whole lot of precincts in the middle, but where are we going to put the green spaces? So this then set in motion an expression of interest for someone to come along and fix a little corner site in 227 Cambridge Terrace. This tender was put out again by Sarah and yourselves, Mana Whenua Environment Canterbury and Christchurch NZ. We, as an organisation, pitched the Cool Takaro Orchard project and won that tender. So, in 2016, we took what was a compacted rubble site, and in 8 years, we've turned it into a flourishing orchard, a community space. We've delivered almost the educational hub. It is a world-class building. Not a drop of rainwater goes off to that site into the stormwater system. The only thing that leaves that site is a bit of poo from the toilets in the middle that we had to put in for resource consent. The building itself is zero carbon footprint. So I'm just going to skip to the numbers because I don't have a lot of time. There is a misconception that as a major stakeholder in this project, Christchurch City Council has put a lot of money into this, but the reality is you haven't. If you look at your pie, 14% of the total cost, but the reality is that half of that pie is actually a loan, which shouldn't be in the pie anyway because we're going to pay it back, and the other half is Better Off funding, which was central government money. We then received the Better Off funding right at the time where building costs skyrocketed by 40%, and then there was an expectation that we were to use that money instead of strengthening communities to run our operations. So those two things alone, plus other things, have meant that we haven't been able to complete it on that money. The total project, the feedback we've had is you've blown out. Well, the reality is, with what we've paid so far in cash, what we've done in volunteer and in kind time, plus the money that we're asking for, the total cost of the project is still below what the original project cost was. We re-scoped it in 2020 and saved a heap of money. So we're still delivering within that original budget. So where to from here? The staff are saying to us, you've got us by the balls. Well, the reality is you've got us by the balls. This is council-owned land. You have got first security of a $3 million asset for $150,000, which makes it really challenging for us to get money from elsewhere. Up until September, we paid the loan interest with our vegetable sales once a week. We haven't been able to do our September payment because we're just not operational and we can't pull it out of the year. We have QA costed the build complete at $650, but what we have done, and that's been checked by 2 builders, what we've done is we've scaled that back to $290K by getting donations. We've done a power of work ourselves on the Adobe bricks and things like that. And we really need a contingency to get the operations working. Once the site's activated, it completes the north frame, and we will have enough in our social enterprise to be able to pay our loan back. We've had a professional business valuation looking at our projections, and they are well aligned. So to circle back to share an idea, the people of Christchurch wanted green spaces. This project, in my view, is the only anchor project that meets the top 3 criteria that the people wanted. It's a green space with huge amount of biodiversity value. It's a cafe and a restaurant. It's got a bit of shopping, and it's also being led by the people, a network of people. Thousands of people have contributed with money, and when it's completed, what we already do, we deliver to the people of Christchurch and Greater Christchurch a plan to make this the most food secure region in the country.
Great, thank you, Hayley, for that. It's good to get an update on where it is, and I know we've got a paper coming next week to consider. We probably haven't got time for questions, but I've just got one. It's just around, so you mentioned the security on the 3 million. Is that, it just seems weird to me we would have security for 150 grand of the entire 3 million. Is that what you meant?
So you've got security on the building. So in the current valuation of the building's around about 3 million. But even though the loan's only 150, so we can't give first security to anybody else.
Right. Maybe that's something we need to have a conversation about, because that might be a non-financial way of helping potentially. Yes. So okay, hey, thank you for coming in. Be good to, can we leave that with the relevant team? Thank you. Okay, Peter, you're up with key organisational performance report, please. Item number 7. We've got no deputations and no petitions.
Right, good morning everybody. I guess the moral of this report is so close. For all 4 of the amber goals that we're looking at, levels of service, capital project delivery, planning for capital projects, we are like within 1% of where we want to be. That's picked up a lot from the start of the year, and that's, I think, the result of a lot of focus at management team level around this stuff. Levels of service have picked up nearly 5%. There's no reason to believe we won't get that extra % and end up where we want to be. So just running through them one by one, levels of service, if we can just pick up 2 or 3 goals, and there are 2 or 3 in the offing, we will make the 85%. Capital projects, 84.8, looking for 85. That should come right. And planning for capital, both March and June dates are well out. We've got plenty of time left, and they're on track to hit those goals. So we're feeding that end of the pipe to enable the delivery to happen. The red there around value for money is because we do have a couple of activity budgets that are overspent, notably stormwater and wastewater collectively amount to about 4.6 in overspend forecast for year end, not current. And there are reasons for that are probably more available in the finance report when you get to the capital and finance reports. A couple of other things of note. We just followed up on some questions from councillors. There was a further question from Councillor Harrison Hunt on consenting, and there are some responses there that basically say, look, consent volumes are 20% greater. They've been working on overtime as a method of dealing with that. It's not as simple as simply recruiting more people. even if you've got the money, the people are very hard to get. There's a lot of competition between the metros to get these people. There's some others there on code compliance and building inspections, again relying on overtime, but also pointing out the increases in performance that have happened, as well as contractors and remote inspection technology. Now, all I can do is reflect what the head of services put here. We have asked that heads be present for these briefings. Unfortunately, Stefan couldn't be present today, but he's provided a fairly fulsome reply there. There was a follow-up question from Councillor Johansson on the water supply, why the trend is reversed on water consumption. The figures have been provided there, but unfortunately there's no clear rationale as to why there's been a reverse in the trend. The only thing I can really point out is that 298 litres today, litres per day, 261 and 278 are all reasonably close to each other. There may be some seasonal variation in that, but the head of is not confident in prescribing a reason to it at this point. And they're the two follow-ups we've done. If you need further information, I'm happy to go try to get it for you.
Hey, thank you, Peter. It's always a good report, and I appreciate your introduction to it. Tyler, then Yanni.
Cheers, Peter, for that. That's awesome. If there's anything off the top of your head, with that 20% uptick in resource consents, is there projected to be a downturn in resource consents?
I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is there's been discussion that Christchurch at 20% greater is kind of out of kilter with a lot of the country where things have slumped. So we seem to be a bit of an engine room, and I'm not sure that anybody can actually predict with real rigour what will happen a year from now.
Okay.
But again, I can follow up with Stefan and see if we can get some more data for you.
Yeah, sure.
There are projections. I just don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah, no worries. And with that backlog, are we expecting to potentially see some changes or proposals within the annual plan over the next financial year in regards to trying to, remediate that backlog?
Well, I'm not aware of any in the current annual plan.
Okay.
Current proposed annual plan.
Yep.
So the answer to that, I think for 25-26 is there are none proposed at the moment.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Yanni.
Thanks. I was just interested in the response to the water supply, and it basically said that the excess water charging continues to have a positive impact on peak demand periods, yet we're consuming more water than we have before. So we've brought in the excess charging, and yet water use is going up, not down. So is there a way? I mean, we did have a presentation, I think, maybe a year ago on the excess water charging and the impact that it was having. But it'd be quite good to understand in terms of revenue and water use, what's happening in terms of those excess water charges. Are we able to get just a memo that gives us a bit more detail? Because when I read the response, it's hard to comprehend how we've brought in excess water charging, and yet we're using more water, and apparently we're reducing the peak demand.
I understand your focus. Look, rather than make something up, I could throw to Gavin, who's just over here, but I suggest that maybe giving him the ability to come back with a composed response would be better.
Or just a memo, particularly around the revenue as well.
We'll do a memo.
Cool. And then just the other question I had around the consenting was, you talk about the inspections and the failure rate, and I was just wondering, are you seeing any trends in terms of either developers or types of buildings that are failing the inspections? And I'm particularly interested, obviously we've had the case of the engineer that's been brought to our attention as well, so just wondering what we're doing to look at that kind of wider issue around what's the cause behind the failures, and if there's any trends that we can be understanding.
Who are you directing that at, Yanni?
Well, that's obviously
Yeah. Okay, we'll take that. Someone can take that on notice. Yeah. Great, so we'll pick that up. Okay.
Yeah, because I guess the question for me is, do we need to...
Is your mic on?
I guess the question for me is around, I think it's a statutory requirement in terms of the inspection times, but obviously we're wanting to spend enough time to do it properly and have a good job of looking at what we need to look at. So I did wonder whether we need to think about changing the targets.
I think.
it's
I mean,
requiring
we'll
more
get
time.
Stefan to
But
come
yeah.
back, but there'll be an assurance aspect that sits within being a BCA. That means that they've got certain criteria they've got to meet and things. So, okay. So, Mark.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the a table on page 19 of our report, and it's got the delivery percentage as a column. And I've noticed there's a couple of outliers in there which are on the rather low side. One being the technical services and design, down at 33%. That seems really out of line with everything else in the table.
I think that may have been canvassed here 1 or 2 meetings ago, and what we came to there was that they have a very small number of levels of service, so quite vulnerable to just a single light going,
Yep.
and that they were experiencing some form of IT issue that affected their only 2 levels of service.
Right. Yep. So it's a bit of a-
I think from memory that's where we got to on that one.
Very good. And the only other one that sort of sticks out to me there is transport, again at 48%. It's way down, so I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, if I could just ask the desk to flick to page 19 on the big screen, it just makes the chat a little bit easier. 19 on my, yes, that one. So looking at that, I guess you call it bubble diagram at the top, levels of service are on the vertical axis, and you can see transport is that lowest large circle there. And this is a good mud map for the whole organisation, in effect, because to the left there you can also see on the horizontal axis water supply and wastewater in the overspend, drifting in the overspend direction. So the really quick and dirty way to see where we're up to is what do the outliers look like on this map. If they're drifting downwards, that's a level of service issue. If they're drifting left, it's an overspend. If they're drifting right, it's an under-recovered, underspent. As to the detail around that 48% for transport, it's in the level of service exceptions at the back, and the remedial actions are there from the transport team as well.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that. Mel looks like she's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, Russell. I did see Russell. Yep. So you're going to go through the financial report. Great. And just noting the 2 resolutions there. And I don't know if you want to just talk
Yep,
about
sure.
that as well.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair, Council. So, this is the financial report for October. As the report outlines, we've got an operational surplus of $54 million, being $18.9 million ahead of budget, and we're expecting that forecast to be just under 12 million at year end, 11.8 million. So that's slightly up on where we were last month, and the report highlights the areas there that were driving that. Just looking closer at some of the forecast methodology that we use, but certainly personnel costs, planning consents, and lower organics processing fees. So the things that are driving the surplus at the minute, building and consent volumes, they're up and continuing to be up for the rest of the year. Just noting that there's a bit of an offset for that, because the cost of doing that, we've had some consultants as well as extra staff time in doing that. Rates over strikes, it's an odd word. When we set the rates, it's called a rate strike. So we've effectively, that's saying that the growth was higher. I've mentioned that in previous reports. We've also got the Transwaste dividend that'll be coming in towards the end of the year. And Hagley Park, so offsetting that, Hagley Park parking fees, they're not operational yet. They're about to be, I understand, so they're behind budget. In the expenditure side, we've had significant variances in the insurance costs, which I've mentioned before. That's well down on where we thought the budget was going to be. Personnel costs, under budget year to date, and will be expecting to be about $2 million under at year end. There's no increases have been applied at this point. A couple of matters that are raised in the previous report. So waste management, waste management, we're expecting some, it's about almost $3 million at year end. These have been offset by transport, increased costs of fly tipping, legal fly tipping. Three waters, I mentioned before, that's mainly driven by city care, reactive maintenance. And in the wastewater space, extra costs sitting in the waste treatment plant. And then we mentioned that the building consent extra costs coming in at year end, which also is offsetting the extra revenue coming through. In the capital space, so we've forecasting to be about $707 million at year end. So that's about $30 million under budget for end of year. So there's two parts of that. One is in the core program. So that's about almost $38 million underspent by year end. And One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha will be overspent. So it's probably a misnomer really, by $7 million. It's not necessarily overspent, it's ahead of budget, but the project is on track, so that's quite positive. Item 6, or section 6, talks about the Treasury and the report there. Everything is in compliance. We're expecting an update from the OCR later on today. And as the Chair has mentioned, there's an extra section recommendation within the report, just looking to move, because there's minimal movement in the Treasury space, really we'll take it out in the monthly report and keep it in the quarterly report where you can see the changes. Anything out of that cycle that needs to be brought back to council, we would do that as part of this report. Yeah. That's pretty much it, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Russell. That's really thorough, and it does make sense around the Treasury stuff. And the wording is good in that it, if there are issues, they'll be brought to our attention, but then we still get that quarterly reporting. So I think that's really good. Tyler and then Yanni.
Hey, Russell. Apologies, I couldn't track down the costs for fly tipping. What's the number on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So it's, I'm not sure of your page, but section 4.6, there's a bit of a table there.
Okay.
And second last line there is, it's about $1.3 million.
Right at the bottom of page 68. It's got that increased cost for legal fly tipping transport.
Sweet.
Yep.
And on that, now that we've obviously had years and years of this, are we seeing trends through different quarters in terms of the prevalence of fly tipping?
Right, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not.
Sorry, I got the heads out.
No, that's okay. I'm not aware of the detail.
It's probably more might be a technical question for the team, that if you can come back with something, because it'd be good to understand it.
Yeah. Because there's going to be obviously extra costs, particularly in my ward, around this time of year, and we're seeing quite a lot already. And Bryant Street and the Southern Motorway are two other ones that I've noticed.
So they can take. Well, if we stick this one to the finance,
great.
But you can take it away.
Thanks.
Perfect. Yanni.
Yeah. And I mean, my understanding from talking to Alec is staff are actually actively working on some.
I don't want to have a discussion about fly tipping.
Yeah, on fly tipping. Yeah. I just wanted to check in terms of the excess water, residential and commercial. Is it possible to get those separated out? And it just is that. I just wanted to be clear. The yield. I mean, we don't have a forecast for them either. So, yeah, I was just trying to understand a little bit more about that excess water.
Sure.
Again, what we're forecasting, what we're actually getting in, and probably a distinction between commercial and residential, if possible.
Yeah, for sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. We'll look at separating that out, but just the dash under forecasting isn't that there isn't a forecast. It's that we're expecting it to come right at year end. Okay.
Right. Okay. And then the Hagley Park Botanic Garden parking fees, that's for the Botanic Gardens as well as Hagley Park? And is that the annual revenue that we're expecting is 0.7, is it? So $700,000 a year.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Now that's saying we're behind the year-to-date budget by 0.7. and we're expecting to be that at year end. So effectively, we had budgeted, I think, for the full year. We're not yet operational, but we're about to be, and so therefore the budget will be fine for the rest of the year, but we're not going to make up for that time that we haven't been collecting the funds.
Is it possible in this report to see what the total, like we've only got the yield to date and the forecast in terms of the variance, but is there a total quantum that we can see?
This is, I think we just be careful about the purpose of this report, and really it's to identify key changes from our budget or from our annual plan. So I get what you're saying, but rather than having the budget in there as well, I'm just thinking more for people that are reading it outside of here.
Sure.
It would be good. The team can come back to you with specific bits of information.
So, for example, though, if we were expecting to get, I don't know, just 0.8, $800,000 of Agley parking fees, then you'd be quite concerned that there was such a high variance. But if it's we're going to get 7 million and we're only at 0.7, then obviously that's not as concerning. So that's why I was just trying to understand if there was a way of seeing, maybe as a percentage thing, about like how
Wanting it in context, is that
how
what you're saying?
different, how much worse this or better the situation is
Well,
at a glance.
That is that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the number was either 1.8 or 2.1 million that was budgeted for the full year in terms of those fees that came in as part of the LTP. So perhaps next time what we can do in those, we can look at whether we can give it some context that helps to show the percentage variance, I guess is what you're asking, Councillor Johansson.
And we'll get regular reporting through F&P on how that revenue line is going, right? Like this report will be a regular thing to Hagley Park.
This report here.
Yeah.
We get this every month.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. Okay, cool. So I think we're good. Tim looks like he's happy to move it. Tyler looks like he's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move to the capital performance report with Nikki.
Morena, good morning. You'll be familiar with my colleague Richard Wesley, and I've got Gavin here from Three Waters today. So you've got the three reports: the capital performance report, the watch list, and the CRAF transport program. Regarding the FY25 capital program forecast, including Te Kaha, this is currently at 101% of budget, with a projected spend of 745.8 million, which is 24% achieved year to date. Excluding Te Kaha, the forecast results align at 100% of budget, with a projected spend of 548.5 million. And we at the Program Management Office still have our forecast unchanged at 510 million, and we'll review it again next month. Major areas of the capital program are also actively reviewing their forecasts as part of their operational day-to-day processes, with most areas operating within the target range of 10%. And we've had another progressive month in projects, including the completion of the Greening the East project, so planting 49 large and flowering trees across our eastern parts of the city, which is a significant milestone to highlight. Thank you to our project manager, Corrine Early, and her project team. Moving into the watch list, and although it's only October, we propose to please ask for your consideration to proactively address the November watch list. So specifically, we are recommending swapping in a project and then swapping out a project. We're proposing to add in project 67806, so CWTP activated sludge plan, the trickling filter replacement at the waste treatment plant in Christchurch City, into the November watch list, and then to remove... Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, if we haven't got it in the recommendations about a move in and a swap in and a swap out, what we might do is bring it back next month with a recommendation. I think would be...
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. But
yeah, might be.
Sorry, that's my fault for thinking that I put it in
We
there.
do that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Talk
Yep.
to it.
Carry on?
Yep.
Okay. And then to remove from the watch list project 47123, the Christchurch Waste Treatment Plant biogas storage upgrade. This is currently on hold. It's currently on hold until 2025. The proposal effectively swaps the two projects on the watch list to better align to our current priorities and ensures the watch list remains active And I've got Gavin here to ask or answer any questions or queries you may have.
What we might do, and it's okay today, but a kind of good process thing is it would just be good to have a heads up.
Of course.
I don't know whether, I wasn't aware we're changing things, so it makes it a bit difficult to understand what we're changing.
Yeah. I
So
apologise.
no, that's okay. Do you want to just talk through the rest of the report, and then we can take questions on that? And I'd just be keen to get some feedback from Brent. Yeah. Thanks.
I can take questions now on the report.
Okay. Any questions on the report? It's probably not. No, no, Yanni will have a question. Yanni. No, it's good. It's good. Jake, and then Yanni.
No, I was just going to say it is great to have that Green Areas project done, and I'm proud my wee little project in my ward has made it to the top page, and a former board member would also be very proud to see this project come to fruition. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I just wondered if staff are able. We're showing Parikori as being green on track. Do we know when the handover will be? And is everything? I'm just wanting to get an update on the confidence around the Parikori. Given that I think this is probably, it looks like good news on here that we've got greater confidence now that that's happening, but.
Who would be able to answer that? Yeah, I really think that the only way to answer that question is with a separate briefing, because obviously it's delivered by others, so we have more confidence, but yeah, we're not directly involved with the project. So
Right, okay. The other question I had in terms of the CRAF briefing, so we've now seen that the initial forecasts for the street renewal for Wyon Street, for example, it's been put into our renewals program, but it's been at half the price of the CRAF project. So I'm trying to understand how the two arms of council are working together around cost certainty. Obviously with CRAF, I've been raising concerns for a number of years now around the budget, the cost, and understanding what's happening. But it would appear that that project can now be done under the street renewal budget, 205 I think it is, but the costings has been the original CRAF, not the CRAF that was double, which led to it being delayed.
Lynette?
This is the printed version.
This is the printed version. Which?
So through the chair, generally on CRAF, progress is moving faster on many projects because they have got moving post the reduction of the Transport Choices program. So we are seeing really good progress on a lot of projects. With regard to Wyon Street in particular, there was meetings to and fro with the community board. Yes, a briefing was done and an initial estimate was put together that through the community board decision changed the priority for the community board up there. You as council advised us through the LTP process that you wanted Wyon to be a priority in the street renewal program. It has been put on very recently with an initial estimate for the street works alone, but we know that there are culvert works down there to do, and that is what causes the extra cost.
So half the
We
project-
haven't scoped we haven't finished scoping up the culvert works.
Right.
So we've got to work that out, but it will come out of other buckets within transport as well.
Okay, so effectively there's no difference in the cost, it's just how it's the scope that we've measured.
Yep.
That has changed the price.
Yep. So the LTP was finalised, as you're aware, at the end of last financial year. The team have been working on it since then, and they've been going around the community boards. And I believe we're at your community board tomorrow to talk through the programs. So we've been going around all the community boards and dealing with that. But Wyon Street, as council has indicated, is a priority on the street renewal program.
So the other budget that we don't have visibility of, we've got visibility of the street renewal, but not the culvert.
Yeah.
When will we get
You have
An understanding
visibility
of
of
the
all
comment.
budgets through the LTP.
I'm just like with this. It says that Wine Street's not proceeding. Obviously, we know it's going to proceed, which is great. I'm just trying to get a way to actually be able to articulate that to the local community, because the budget that we've got publicly for the street renewal is half of what the craft budget was.
So through the chair, if this helps, the articulation to me would be the community board made a decision to prioritise other works through the craft program. That is just one program within a broader program of council's work, as we're all aware. Council has prioritised getting Wine Street done, so it is the top priority for the works. That's what I would articulate to the community.
Cool. Okay, so now I've got Tyrone, and then Mark, then Tyler.
Actually, sorry,
And Mel.
I'm actually good, Mr. Chair.
You're good?
Because the reporting is actually so good that it tells me everything that I need to know.
Perfect.
And it's worth noting just why it's worth investing in these types of tools that we've got. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm not going to argue with you. Mark?
Well done, Councillor.
All right, keep it going.
Tyrone.
Come on. We don't need to be a
So-
Tyrone praising session.
Just looking at South Express Cycleway, it's probably a Lynette question again, I'm thinking. We've got critical showing on the entire summation here. Just wondering how we're going with that Kiwi Rail design and the
Sorry, councillor, what page is it?
page
there it is. I've got it.
101.
It is my understanding is the project is progressing along, but the intersection of Gilberthorpe's Parker is not progressing at this stage, and that's what's causing the critical nature of the work. So we're working out how to
How to get around that.
how to work with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. And
It's still on front of mind to keep moving.
yep. The section from along Barter heading out to Templeton, is that currently in tender process or?
I don't know. I'd have to come back. Sorry.
Cool.
It's due. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I've got Tyler, and then Mel, and then Yanni.
Hey, Lynette. Welcome.
Hi.
No, I'm joking. I just noticed that Bradshaw Terrace, I'm looking at the craft projects here,
Yep.
and Bradshaw is at 89%. I thought it was 99.
So
But
the construction on ground may have pretty much finished. It's pretty much finished, but there's still work to tie up. If this budget's not all expended, it will go back up to the program level and be redistributed to other
that's
projects.
what I wanted to know. Okay. So that means we've got something that's coming to our table in regards to Brockworth, and then 3 minor safety improvements across Darville Street and Kilmarnock. The proposal that was brought to us from staff, which was a great one, was prioritising those craft projects, where Brockworth is prioritised as one, and then the other 3 traffic improvements are then prioritised accordingly.
Yep.
I'm wondering if there may be any movement to keep Brockworth prioritised at 1, and maybe be able to deliver 1 or 2 of those safety improvements, working within the budget of 2 to 2.5 million on Brockworth.
I would have thought so, but to me, that's what you as a board talk to with the
Yeah.
project manager at
So
the
that-
time,
okay,
and
it's
you
probably
can
something to
work
take up
through
with the
that.
board
Yeah,
rather
definitely.
than capital
Yep. No, that's great. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, and then we've got Mel, and then we'll move on.
It was just about Eddington Brook. I can't remember if this was in the tables of things that got rephased for the annual plan. But because it just talks about rephasing that out, and also, possibly putting it out for consultation.
That would be Gavin.
You
could repeat the question? Sorry.
It's about Eddington Brook. It's just in the commentary about it. It talks about spreading the construction out over 3 years, rephasing the budget and the annual plan process, which may have been in those tables, but I don't recall, and also possibly having public consultation at some stage for the Rickerton facility in Hagley Park.
I'd have to come back to you on that.
Okay.
We haven't talked about it all, have we?
Yeah, well, I think we've got a paper coming next week. So
There is a
might-
paper. Yeah.
Do you want to just get some information
we'll get added
to let
onto
Mel know
that,
before
yeah.
then? That'd be cool.
Yeah. There's
Great.
an update.
You're all good, Mel? Yanni, and then Celeste,
Yeah, I
and
was
then
just
we're going to move on.
wondering, in terms of Brockworth, what's the total project cost now? How much is funded through craft?
Oh, sorry.
It just says in the
Oh, I don't.
update, it requires
Proposed at 2.
the Brockworth Street Renewal Project will require additional funds from the program.
Yeah, so currently it's got 0.8
Oh yeah.
and it's at 2. So the board needs to work to prioritise which they want to do. That's what the report
Sure.
coming back to the board is about.
So the estimated cost for the total Brockworth Place renewal is 2 million, and that can be funded within the existing craft program based on the board's prioritisation. Do we get development contributions for craft?
This is it's probably out the scope of this paper. So Celeste, have you got a question? And then we're going to move on.
Okay, can I just flag though? I was keen to and I know staff have said maybe we wait till next month, but given the importance of the activated sludge, I was keen just to move to add that to the watch list now. So
Yeah, I'm just getting some advice because the first I've heard of it is now, which to me doesn't. Yeah, it's right. So Celeste, then.
I'm just on page 95. Just got a question around Pages Road Bridge. Just interested to know because it's talking about the forecast being April.
Must be this way. Yeah. Sorry,
That
I'm
one?
just getting the page.
Cool.
We can't go in the right. We're just struggling to go in the right direction between us. Here we go. We're right now.
Can you just explain to me, because you've got the baseline and the forecast, can you just explain to me the difference there? Because has the forecast for the delivery of that project changed in terms of the construction? That's the completion, is it? That's the completion milestone. So we're still on track for construction beginning in FY28?
Yes, all things being equal, that's what's still planned. The baseline is what was agreed years ago, wasn't it? So that was, that was where we started when the project was first online. We thought we would be at that point then, but it has since changed.
When did that change? When is that updated? Because my understanding was the forecast was earlier than that in terms of the completion of that project. Has that changed?
The
recently?
baseline.
The forecast for the completion of the project. And
I don't know. I'd have to
Yeah,
come
we'd
back
have
with
to
that
we'd have to
detail.
check back and see. I mean, it's obviously a very early project. We're still very early on in the project, and so those can only ever be indicative finish dates.
Can we get an update on that specific forecast? Because obviously, with concerns around the resilience of that bridge, the completion of that project is of a lot of interest to the communities that will be using it if they need to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Through the chair, can I just, because this is a public meeting, remind everybody that we are working through the business case on this, and we will not be starting any detailed design until we've completed that business case, because we want to make sure we secure the funding for the bridge. So that's where we're at right at the moment, and until that business case process is finished, then we won't have a clear handle on the program or the timelines.
I think it would still be useful to get that information
Yeah, we will still
because
come back with the
obviously
information.
council still has the option of progressing it through other channels. So obviously the business case is if we're looking to get the NZTA funding, but we also need to understand if there's any risk to the project not being delivered within the forecast that's been projected here.
That would be a big departure in terms of fully funding it ourselves when government have indicated they will. Maybe I've missed something, but because I know it's good, we raise Pages Road Bridge every month, but my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lynette, was that in order to apply for the funding, you need to do the business case, and if you can't retrospectively go back and get the funding if you don't do the business case.
Yep.
And we're working hand in glove with Richard and the team to get it done. So
Yes,
at least something's changed, but no.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
So what specifically do?
Our council's already committed to potentially funding that project if required.
Yep.
And we'd need to understand what the risks are because we've only got funding for the next 3 years, which is actually that's 7 million? We don't actually have committed funding for the whole project yet, as I understand, because we haven't completed the business case. So that's not confirmed.
Are you sorry? Just so I'm clear, are you wanting a paper to remove us from the NZTA process?
I'd like clarity on the timelines because we need to be able to make informed decisions about at what point do we look at alternatives to the current process.
Well, that's the thing. You're either in or you're. correct me, I'm a layman with this stuff, but you're either in or you're not. So, I mean, if you want a paper on withdrawing from the ability to have NZTA funding, we could do that, but I'm just not sure what you're wanting.
So the rest of the project is we're waiting for another year. So the project itself is potentially being delayed by a year as we develop the business case. With a bridge that is a critical lifeline link, we know that the bridge itself is 15% of code. We need more information to give assurance to the community that that's been delivered as fast as possible, bearing in mind it wasn't accepted through fast track. So we need to understand how long that's going to be, have a clear understanding of the timelines moving forward, because we've got 1 year where nothing's happening in terms of developing that apart from working on the business case. So I'd like some clarity around that.
I mean, we can, Lynette, is that something you can, I'm still really unclear as to.
I can provide clarity on the timelines. I provided me my back.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Clarity on the timelines.
Yeah. It would just be a fundamental change if council are now saying we're going to depart from the business case process where the government have agreed to contribute to fully have that ratepayer funded. I mean, it's tens of millions of dollars, so I'm just not sure.
We don't know what the government contribution will be as of yet towards the total cost of the project.
We do know that it'll be zero if we depart from the business case. Yeah. Unless I've missed, and I may have missed something, but that was my understanding.
Well, currently it's only $7 million towards the total cost of the project.
No, we've been through this, through the chair, we've been through this before. The business case goes in for the complete funding that we're asking for, and we're asking for the funding for the bridge. So it's the funding that we are requesting is something in the order of $20 million.
Yeah.
And once you get it, but the announcements have been based on what was in the 3-year period.
Correct. Yeah.
So the government announcements are based on that.
Well, when we had Nicola, who's the chief executive of NZTA here, it feels like probably a month ago, and her understanding was once you've got the business case in, as long as we're working hand in glove with Richard and the team, that you get money in the next cycle because it's been accepted. Yeah. So it's almost like how we do funding for different projects. Yeah, but we can get some more advice.
Yeah, bearing in mind we have progressed with other projects without NZTA funding recently.
Yeah, well, we'd have to go and consult for $20 million ratepayer money into a bridge that the government have said they'll fund, but we could get some advice. Okay, let's move on. Anything else? Yanni? As long as it's not Pages Road Bridge.
No, it's not. It's even better. So, I mean, obviously one of the concerns, a number of the critical things in here are to do with KiwiRail. Is there any update on working with KiwiRail to reduce the costs and to get some resolution to the issues?
There have been a number of meetings. I've had a number of meetings with senior managers at KiwiRail. Brent has as well. We are continuing to talk. So yes, I think it's fair to say it is a work in progress. We are working on it, but it is going to be something that takes us some time.
Okay. Right, so I'm happy to move. I'm happy to move this. Pauline's happy to second it. Yanni, you want to?
Oh, I just wanted to move that we add the activated sludge treatment plant to the capital watch list.
Okay, so they're going to include it. They're going to include it next time.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yep. Thank you.
And you're going to reflect on.
Yeah, I think through you, Mr. Chair, we can bring back the proposal that was put forward here and formalise it into the report.
I mean, everyone agrees it should be in there.
And just the other thing, and there's some stuff in PX, but I did wonder whether we need to have the other projects attached to the CWTP, like and again maybe when stuff come back, but if there's other reliances on other parts of that plant being fixed or rebuilt or upgraded. Is there a way that we can see the big picture?
I think we might leave that with the team to have a look at. And then, but good points, because I agree, we want it. So I haven't known about it until literally the beginning of this match. Well,
thank you.
The beginning of the paper. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great, thank you. So, Luke, do you want to come up? Yep. Are you there somewhere for the infrastructure? So have you got those resolutions, David? Can you just put them up on the screen just as a starting point? So we had the expressions of interest from different people. Given the number of people I've taken my name out, I've withdrawn from it so that we can get more of a balance. Do you want to move it? Or?
Can I please make a suggestion? Historically, I was on the Land Drainage Recovery Program working group set up for about 5 years. We ran that. It was a really effective working group, and no decision-making powers or anything like that. Working with staff, it was nimble. 3 people on it. And I have a feeling that number 3 is a better number for a working group. I think that's way too many. And I'd like to suggest, by way of moving, and I think that the Mayor should be on it. Yeah, Aaron Kewen, the Mayor, and Councillor Coker as a representative from the Finance and Performance. I really don't think you need all that many people on there. Plus, when you have a meeting like that, you tend to be outnumbering any staff around the table, and I don't think that's conducive. It's a free and frank platform for actually getting done what you want to do, Aaron, on this. And I really think a nimble group is far more effective, personally.
So
I'd like to move 3 in those names that I put up.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so we've got. Thanks, Pauline.
Okay.
Appreciate you flagging that. That's. I'm happy to second that.
Oh, great. Yep.
We just need to. Yep. So you've got that. So does anyone have any questions for the team?
So that's the substantive now.
Yep.
Can you foreshadow the original?
Of that list I had before. Yep. Yep, definitely.
Oh, Sarah's got a hand up.
So we'll I'll get you in a minute, Sarah. All good. So we've got, so just so we're clear, we've got that on the table, moved by Pauline, seconded by me, which is Aaron, Mel, and the Mayor. And we've foreshadowed from Tyler my one, which was Aaron, the Mayor, Mel, Celeste, Sarah, and Kelly. Yep. So that's cool. So we've got them on the table. That's fine. Yeah, sure. Yep.
In the original paper, it had the spaces for 6. Where did that come from? 6 names? Who put that in initially?
Me.
You.
I just
so
thought.
What were you envisaging for the size of the group?
Yeah, around 6, but absolutely take the point of nimbleness being a positive thing. But I thought 6 was just a balanced number of people as a subset of the council.
Okay.
Yeah, so Phil, sorry, just so you're aware, there was a resolution on the table moved by Pauline, seconded by me, which is to put Aaron, Melody, and yourself as the working group. It's been foreshadowed, which is all good, from Tyler, which is to put Aaron, Mel, yourself, Sarah, Celeste, and Kelly. So we'll just vote on those at the right time. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Celeste. Yep. And sorry, Sarah. Yep. I'll go Celeste then you. Yep.
Okay. What is the standard size of a group normally of this thing? Because I'm on a number of different similar groups, and there's a minimum of about 6 normally, because I find it's quite helpful to have that kind of diversity of perspective. And there hasn't been any issues with outnumbering staff. Are there any sort of standard numbers for these types of?
Yeah, so through the chair, I had a look through some of the other working groups, and it did seem to sort of vary between 6 and 3, which is where I went with 6. I had a look at 2 or 3 other working groups that have been set up recently, and that was the kind of average number. Yeah.
Sarah? Yep.
Thanks for that. I mean, I expressed an interest on the day at being involved in that. Got a strong interest in the infrastructure space. Whatever the names that end up on the list, as long as anyone is welcome to turn up and listen, like any sort of committee or subcommittee, and that goes in people's diaries so that they know where that is. I don't have a big problem with the actual list that goes there, if that makes sense.
To be fair, that's where I got to too, which was I can go along. So yeah, same.
Yeah, as long as I can go along and listen, and because there's no point us getting to the end and the the infrastructure working group of 3 making some recommendations, and then the rest of us trying to relitigate it because we haven't heard the information, right?
It'll probably happen anyway. Yeah, but no, good point.
But if everyone has the opportunity to turn up,
No,
and
I
listen to
agree.
all of the
I completely
information.
agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So as long as that's really clear.
So let's put this to a. So what we'll do is we'll just vote on 4, and then because everything else will go through, I'm hoping, just around the terms of reference and things like that. So actually, let's vote on 1, 2, 3, and 5, because I think everyone's generally comfortable with that. So can we? Yeah. So that's it. So everyone happy? That's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? That's carried. And let's just vote on 4, which is that membership of 3. So put that to the vote. All in favour? Oh, sorry. No, that's okay. All right, so we'll put that to a vote. All in favour? Against? No. The ayes have it, but we can do a division if people want. So just do a oh yeah. Do you want to just raise your hand for no? 1, 2. Just have you got that, David? Or?
Second. So we've got Jake.
2, 3, 4, 5. And Sarah as well. Yep, got you. Yep. Just do a division. It's just tidier. Sorry, I should have just.
Councillor Peters.
Nearly there.
Yes.
Councillor Peters. Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Donovan.
No.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Moore. Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson. Councillor Kean. Sorry. Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor Barber. Yes. Councillor McClellan.
No.
Councillor Scandrett.
Yes.
The Mayor.
Yep.
Councillor Templeton.
No.
Ten for yes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, no.
Great. So that motion is carried. Thank you, Luke, for your work on that.
All good.
And for the work
Thank
you're
you.
going to do now.
Yeah, well, no, if you want to do it first. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so let's keep going. Right, so Christchurch NZ, do you want to come on up to the table? Okay, before can everyone just switch back into the meeting? Before we begin, the Mayor just wanted to say something.
Okay, thank you, Sam. As you may or may not know, today will be Dr. Teresa Arsenault's last appearance at this committee as Chair of Christchurch NZ. Teresa's retiring from Christchurch NZ Board, having served as the first Chair some 8 years ago. Teresa's made a significant contribution to the city, and we have been fortunate to have had a chair of Teresa's calibre and expertise for as long as we have. As many will know, Teresa was initially the director of former Canterbury Development Corporation, and it was under Teresa's leadership that the Canterbury CDC and the Christchurch and Canterbury Tourism were merged to become the new Christchurch NZ, and subsequently has developed to become one of the city's key front doors to mega and major events such as Sail GP and Black Clash, the well-loved Buskers Festival, and as well as business events and conferences. Urban development and investment. Notably, the economic expertise at CNZ supported the council with over the difficult COVID-19 years contributed in no small part to the way in which the challenges were met. CNZ has also successfully embraced urban development, having added this function to its mandate to become an economic development agency at the council's request. And it continues the city's development of economic visitor tourism, city brand and Antarctic strategies that underpin the city's economic prosperity. Therese, your experience, composed leadership and networks have served CNZ and the city very well, and has your focus on collaboration and clarity. 8 years is an outstanding contribution, and on behalf of the council and the city of Christchurch, I thank you and wish you all the very best for the future. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I'll say a bit more at the end, but I do want to thank you because you took a risk on this. I guess I'm a Cantabrian of 28 years, but I don't sound it. And it really has been the role of a lifetime. And I'm incredibly grateful that you've allowed me to be part of what has been a difficult but really incredible opportunity for this city. And I think when you look outside, you can see a lot of, the city is in a really good spot. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll say a bit more at the very end, but I am incredibly grateful for your support and challenge through the years. So thank you. We're here to talk about our some of the highlights of our annual report as well as quarter one. Ali will lead that, but I wanted to introduce to you Lauren Quaintance, who is sitting here beside me, currently as our deputy chair. Very soon, though, you'll be seeing much more of Lauren. She is also our chair designate, and I think you will be incredibly pleased to be able to work with Lauren and the way you've worked with me in a very collaborative and open way. So really looking forward for you to be seeing more of Lauren and for her to take up the chair role. But we'll start off with Ali.
Awesome. Thanks, Therese. So look, as Therese says, we're going to use the opportunity today to whip really quickly through the key top line results from last year. You've heard a lot about it already, and I know you're always short of time. And then I'm going to jump to some of the highlights from Q1. So let's start with looking back on our levels of service. We had 26 levels of service agreed with yourselves last year, and we met all of them. Here are some of the selected highlights. We attracted more than $2.3 million worth of central government or private funding for economic development work to amplify the funding that you give us. 745 businesses managed to access support to become more productive through our services, and we were successful on 28 out of 65 business event bids, which is a remarkable success rate of 43%. We also hosted FMILs for 94 trade agents and investors on behalf of the city, and that obviously gave us some really great reach in terms of the coverage we got. Turning to our KPIs, in most cases, as you can see, we far exceeded our KPIs. We delivered long-lasting jobs that generated 641 years of FTE work. That was a 300% hit on our KPI, and 430 years of work in short-term jobs. And we exceeded our GDP target of 50 million by 68% and our visited target by 76%. And I just want to note that just on GDP alone, we achieved a return on investment for every dollar that you spend of $5.28. So that's a great return for the funding you give us. But actually, slightly counterintuitively, I want to focus on the one target we missed. And that's the value of investment into Christchurch supported by us. And as we've noted before, the work of investment attraction has a long and lumpy pipeline, and timing delivery is very often out of our hands. When we came to talk to you in June about a pipeline of 5 significant projects that we were working on, we expected or hoped that at least one of those would land before the end of the financial year, and that didn't happen. Now, that's why we missed the KPI. The great news is we've already hit our KPI for this year because 2 of those 5 landed in the last month. So that's really exciting. And I want to talk a little bit about those 2 deals. And forgive me a detour into what is essentially Q2 activity, but Councillor MacDonald actually asked us to talk a little bit about Christchurch NZ's role in helping to land the 2 significant opportunities, the Engine Centre and also the CAR-T therapy BioAura. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about those. It will be brief, partly due to time, but also partly because obviously this is a public session and quite a lot of the work we do is commercially sensitive. So let's start with the Engine Centre. We have a really good relationship with the Engine Centre through our general business growth and sector work, particularly around the work we do with the city's manufacturing and aerospace sectors. So when the team there reached out to us to see what support they could get from the city, we stepped in to make sure we got all the right people around the table and to act as a neutral facilitator. As part of this, we arranged for a visit for the Mayor and the then CEO Council to go to the Engine Centre to understand the scale and scope of the opportunity. And 2 important actions came out of that. We facilitated conversations about development costs with the relevant parties, and Council directed us to build out a lobbying plan for central government. And we carried out a really significant lobbying with central government. That included Trade and Enterprise, Treasury, ECA and MB. And all of that helped to show not just Christchurch's commitment to the Engine Centre, but the country's commitment. We also developed a talent development and attraction plan for engineering careers, which is going to be key because we've got 200 new jobs to fill. And that work is now in play. It includes things like concierge support for Pratt & Whitney engineers who are migrating from other markets, working with Immigration New Zealand and their targeted recruitment campaign, and of course, working with central government workforce development programs and building an awareness campaign for cross-training opportunities and career switch. So we've got a meeting with the Engine Centre actually in the next couple of weeks where we'll be guiding them on how best to attract the significant talent they need to fulfil this opportunity. Just before I wrap up on the Engine Centre, I just want to be really clear that we were by no means the main player in this work. Our amazing airport and the Engine Centre did an incredible job to make this happen, and CCC leadership also played a really crucial role. Our role was to work, as it often is, really collaboratively behind the scenes to harness the power of that Christchurch ink and make sure the city puts its best foot forward. I'm talking a little bit about BioAura and the journey that we've been on to get the BioAura CAR-T opportunity to the stage it's at. As a reminder, this project is based around manufacturing CAR-T therapies and then scaling to treat both New Zealanders and medical tourists. And in total, the initiative is conservatively projected to add about $250 million in GDP to the city over time. And the therapy will also be life-saving for many of the 250 New Zealanders who are diagnosed with lymphomas that would otherwise be fatal. And I actually heard yesterday that even during the trials, 6 people have had their lives saved that would have otherwise not made it. So it's really, really life-changing. Our role here has been significant. It's included partnering with Bridge West on building the business model and funding PwC to develop a business case, which helped to validate the opportunity and helped create the pitch deck. Introductions to property partners in the health precinct, facilitating partnership conversations with key talent pipeline, including the universities of Otago and Canterbury, providing introductions to local stakeholders in the health sector, lobbying and communication with central government, introductions to mana whenua, and creating personalised investment plans for priority investors. And this opportunity, I just want to acknowledge, because it kind of slightly went under the radar because, like London buses, these 2 big things happen within 3 days of each other. But this is absolutely game-changing for the city. By attracting these medical pioneers here, we have shown our capability in the health tech sector, and that is likely to attract other innovators and investors. Okay, that's my slight detour over. I'm going to go back now to our financial results for the year. In the last financial year, we invested just over $19.2 million into delivering core services to grow the city economy. The majority of that, of course, was funded by City Council, but it has, as normal, been supplemented by central government and private sector. The total investment was significantly less than the prior year, it was around $26 million. Part of that was because central government COVID recovery funding came to an end. And we had, as an organisation, planned to invest accumulated funds during the year, but due to changing city requirements, as you at Council worked through the long-term planning process, we retained some of our funding to invest in priority events and projects in future years. So that's resulted in a reported project profit of 1.6 million, which, as I said, is tagged to future events. Now, I'm now going to go very briefly through each of our city outcomes: productivity, livability and attractiveness, one slide for each, just to give you a snapshot of how we're performing as a city and some of the work we did in Q1. So starting with productivity, economic growth, you're not going to be surprised to hear this. Economic growth has continued to slow, and whilst national GDP growth has fallen into contraction, it's actually down slightly, we're pretty much flat in Christchurch at 0%. Now, despite that lack of growth, recent cuts to the OCR and easing inflationary pressures have seen a lift in business and consumer confidence. And ANZ's Business Outlook survey in Q1 indicated that confidence among Canterbury businesses has lifted to its highest level since 2013. So it does look good. Interesting times in the world, interesting day to day in economics and global politics, but it does look promising. And a new report that we worked with from the Agribusiness and Economic Research Unit at Lincoln University, we sponsored it, that measured the increasing value of the city of Christchurch being an Antarctic gateway. The total contribution to the economy in Canterbury has lifted to 328.8 million in 2023. That's up 12.9%, or 37.6 million from 2022. It is a crucial part of the work that we do, and it reflects the economic value of national Antarctic programs, tourism and events, fishing, education and research, and Antarctic heritage activities in the region. Employment related to Antarctic activities in Canterbury has also grown from approximately 2,900 jobs to almost 3,300 jobs. And as directed by Council, we have led significant work to support this growth and retain the gateway in Christchurch. The Christchurch Antarctic Business Network has grown to over 100 members. That's one of our levels of service. Our gateway status is an increasing driver of our economic activity. And the Christchurch Antarctic Office, which sits within CNZ, continues to work really closely with Duncan and the Council's Civic and International Relations team on national programme hosting and welcome activities. And we work with the recently established City Antarctic Leadership Group. That's a group of key stakeholders who are working to optimise gateway opportunities. Moving on to livability, data released in Q1 from Stats New Zealand's Wellbeing Survey shows we're outperforming, again, it's a common theme, we're outperforming the national average in key areas of livability or well-being. In 2023, 53% of Cantabrians reported experiencing 3 or more key aspects of well-being, like good health, enough income, meaningful social connections and decent housing. And that's outpacing the national average of 48% and Auckland's 43%. Housing is a bright spot for us. There are fewer reports of cold, damp or mouldy homes, largely due to our newer housing stock. And on the financial front, Cantabrians are 6% more likely than the average New Zealander to feel that they have enough income to meet their everyday needs, and 14% more likely than those in Auckland, thanks largely to a lower cost of living. And whilst it's still tough out there for many, these well-being figures reflect our unique strengths, and they're backed up by the numerous stories we hear about Christchurch continuing to buck some of those less positive trends. Now, as you know, our urban development projects take more time than some parts of our work, and you've heard plenty about New Brighton and Sydenham Yard in previous briefings. Those projects both continue to progress well, and I've asked Kath to come along today if you do have questions. But we wanted to give you an early view of another potential project we've been asked to work on, the Littleton Stables. So Council directed us to investigate options for a mixed-use redevelopment of the heritage Littleton Stables site on Norwich Quay and Donald Street, potentially including housing, hospitality and entertainment, community workspaces and consideration of heritage restoration. And this received support from the Te Pātaka o Raikaia Hautu Banks, sorry, I'm afraid I've probably butchered that, Banks Peninsula Community Board at a recent update. Early technical and commercial feasibility work has confirmed the opportunities, and discussions are currently underway with council staff to agree next steps and if and how the work will be managed. And finally, moving on to attractiveness, the number of businesses in Canterbury increased by just over 1,000 in Q1 compared to the same time in 2023. And business growth in Canterbury, I love this figure, accounted for 23% of national business growth over that period, despite Canterbury making up just 13% of New Zealand businesses overall. And that highlights the ongoing ability of the region and local business community to attract and sustain business despite the challenging economic climate. And the rate of annual business growth in Canterbury was double that of national business growth in the September quarter. Now, this quarter, I'm touched on two things in the attractiveness space. I'm going to talk a little bit about cruise and a little bit about our city brand. So this quarter, we received a report from the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research about the economic impact of cruise and perceptions of both cruise visitors and Christchurch residents. Now, the report estimates cruise passenger spending in Christchurch and Canterbury at between 23 and 35 million per annum. In summary, about 61% of passengers surveyed are very likely to return to the city, and another 25% are quite likely to return. So that's 86% of cruise visitors saying they wanted to come back, which points to cruise as a driver for broader visitation. 65% of Christchurch and Canterbury businesses surveyed say cruise has a positive or very positive impact on their business, and 75% of locals surveyed consider cruise important or extremely important for our economy, and that comes from Council's Life in Christchurch survey. Now, as with the report about increasing value of our Antarctic gateway status, these results show the value of retaining economic drivers and just making sure that those ecosystems stay viable. And the same is true of our work embedding the relatively new Ōtautahi Christchurch brand. The new city identity was requested, of course, by yourselves and launched in May 2023, and it was followed by a marketing campaign. And the brand has been adopted by key stakeholders, such as Christchurch's International Airport, and they've partnered with us to incorporate on-brand imagery in the International's arrivals area. I don't know if you've been there yet. There is a blessing on the 11th of December to formally launch it. And last year, that welcomed about 1.4 million international passengers. So that's a lot of people seeing our combined city brand. And I just also want to mention that we do an annual market research survey to survey public perception on the city brand and its impact on our image. And the results show a 3.6% increase in our city brand health score, with really positive shifts among Australians and really crucially amongst residents, because we all know that our residents are our best advocates for the city. That's it from me. I'm conscious that that's a lot. Feels like I've kind of dived around from full year, quarter one, and a little bit of quarter two. But hopefully it gives you an update on where we're at, and I'm really happy to take any questions, or do you want to say a few words, whichever order you
Do you want to go first, Therese, and then that might dictate the level of questions we get.
It is my last time in front of you today, and it makes you sort of reflect. It's been 8 years, as the Mayor pointed out. It's not wasted or lost on me that two of my former students are sitting in front of me up at the head table for this last appearance. But it really made me start to think about the origins of Christchurch NZ. Now, some of you will have been around the table for that. And it goes back to a document, an actual strategy. And before coming this morning, I sat down and reread it. And I was struck by how good it was and how relevant it still was. It had really clear objectives to regain Christchurch's pre-earthquake share of the national visitor economy for 2025. And I'm really pleased that the city has already achieved total visitor spend and domestic share outcomes that were outlined there, and are on track to achieve the international outcomes as well. One thing the strategy didn't predict was a pandemic. As a second really key objective, and Ali's talk just mentioned this, was about rebuilding the Christchurch brand to really change perceptions of Christchurch, particularly internally first, because our own residents need to be our ambassadors, as Ali noted, but also externally. And so it really gives me real joy to hear how far we've come in that space. But the visitor strategy was much more than that. It recognized that the visitor economy and the general economy were intertwined, not separate. And so what they were really clear about was that in order to succeed, the city needed to have very much a joined up approach, all pulling together around the same objectives and strategy to get where we wanted to get. And they also recognized that if we did it together, we'd get better outcomes for the city. So I'm really delighted that together we can say that the city is in a really good position, and that we've all pulled together in a way that I think only Christchurch really can. I've always said I think our secret superpower is the 1 degree of separation we have. So we know each other. We bump into each other at the New World or on the playing field, watching kids play footy. And so together as a city, we worked to make this happen. I look back now, and with the benefit of hindsight, I'd just like to make 3 observations. First of all, it worked. The city is, I think, in a great place. When I look at the new infrastructure, that's the envy of elsewhere in New Zealand, the record students and visitors coming to Christchurch, how we are outperforming other regions in terms of job creation, population growth, and resident satisfaction. It's really wonderful to see. The second thing I would note is that the strategy of working together, I think, really has been the secret ingredient to make this work. And I do want to call out the shareholder in this regard. We've worked really closely and openly with you. Tim Scandrett was on our board for a while. I want to recognize all the past and current directors from the council, Vic and Jake, also Andrew Turner, and also Mike Davidson. It's been really important, and we've always really valued having those councillor directors around our table. And we are grateful for that collaboration. And lastly, I would observe it takes time. It takes time to build momentum. And the original strategy that you put forward actually recognized this. Recognized that it would have to be a 10-year strategy. And at this point in time was exactly when we would hit the momentum that we needed to keep going. And so the next stage is actually to accelerate. I've done my dash. I've left it all on the field. The acceleration, I'm very delighted to say that I'm going to hand the baton to Lauren Quaintance, who will lead that next stage. And I just can't wait to see how the city keeps evolving, and with it, how Christchurch NZ evolves as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Therese, for that. And I didn't realise that Bede was taught by you as well. So
He was. You're supposed to
Very
say
good school.
you couldn't
Very good
believe that that would be the case.
We weren't there at the same time. Maybe we were. No, thank you for that. Questions. So I really appreciate that, Therese, and have really valued what you've done. And I think your ongoing willingness to work with us has been really impressive. So thank you for that. Yanni. And
thank you. Yeah, just want to acknowledge the journey and say thank you for the contribution that you've made. And yeah, I'm just I'm struck with the kind of contradiction with the wonderful stuff that you're telling us and the sentiment from Business Canterbury, where we've just heard last week, asking central and local government to enable the private sector to get on with it, to get out of the way, and said, well, businesses do not feel ready to commit to growth, need stability, need more certainty. But I guess I'm just trying to kind of understand, in terms of what happened on Monday, if you've got any sort of insights into that Business Canterbury feeling of the world, because you talked about the two positive announcements, and I mean, incredible work on those two things. And it was just seemed such a shame to have such negativity when we had such an optimistic announcement. So I'm just wondering if you could kind of talk through how that workshop went on Monday, and if there are any key takeaways that we should be aware of.
I think, look, we have a really great relationship with Business Canterbury. Actually, Leanne and I, when we go up to Wellington, we go together to present a really united front, and that's very powerful. It's really good the more that we work together. We work together on the Small Business Advisory Group, which gives advice to Minister Bailey in terms of what's getting in the way for small businesses. There's no doubt that business likes certainty in order to be able to invest. That's true, and that's one of the roles of central and local government, to give that as much certainty as is possible in an uncertain world. Monday was an opportunity for us to think more regionally about what the key priority areas are for Canterbury. So we obviously, as directed by you, have developed a Christchurch economic strategy. That's the economic ambition. That's progressing really well. We've got lots of businesses that are very keen to work towards that, and we will in the new year come and give you an update on that strategy. That's just for Christchurch. Selwyn obviously have their own economic development strategy, add to Waimak and Kaikoura and all the other parts of Canterbury. What Business Canterbury are trying to do is pull that together in a way that is a coherent framework that will enable central government to see that Canterbury is working together. And that's their they have a good role in that because they have a Canterbury remit. We obviously only have a remit for Christchurch city ratepayers. They're the ones who have the view across the whole lot. It will absolutely nest into the Christchurch city ambition. It has to. All that really good work has got to ladder up into that, and you would have seen those themes come through on Monday.
Right. And then the second question I had was really around, and this won't, I don't think, be a surprise, but I look at the data around the economic update and the livability, and I see that you've got Canterbury, not Christchurch, in there. And I reflect on kind of what I see on the ground. And when I look at your annual report, what I don't see is really an understanding of prosperity for everyone. And I don't see what's happening in terms of things like inequity growing or decreasing.
I'm so excited to answer this question, Yanni,
cool.
because you ask it often, and I've got a really good answer for you today.
So I guess two specific questions. One is...
So let Ali answer it.
Yeah, just to clarify. So in terms of the wellbeing, are we able to separate out Canterbury, Christchurch, Selwyn and Waimak? Then the second one was obviously around how are we measuring that inequity? Thank you.
So I don't know the answer to whether we can separate it. I don't think we can. There are lots of challenges around how we get data. Sometimes the only data we can get is national and productivity, for example, and then you have to work it out. It only comes out once a year regionally, but I will check and follow up. I'm aware that this is an absolutely right passion of yours, and social justness is something that forms a key part of our economic ambition. We've just completed an economic inequality or equality report, which we will send to you after this meeting. The reason I haven't talked to council about it yet is that we haven't had chance to do the so what bit of it. We've just got the report at the moment and the information rather than understanding what that means for us as an agency and for us as a city. So if you'll allow us the time to do that, we will then share the report and the so what with you. But because I know it's something you're passionate about, we will send it to you now. So you'll have a report this week.
Phil had a question?
Just a couple of things. Milton Street, I understand the consent for NIWA is in or going in or somewhere in.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about this in PX, but I'm just without PX rather.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to ask Kath to come and join in.
Is getting done. Come to here.
And so that's right. There's only one other little question. When will a peg hit the ground for the rest of it?
So we've got negotiations progressing with the developer at the moment for Milton Street. The challenges have been the complexity of the land in terms of the industrial uses, but also the community housing requirement. As a lot of people in this room will know, there are challenges at the moment with central government in accessing funding for community housing. So this development is reliant on funding for those 10 housing. So we are working with one developer at the moment and just trying to resolve that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. And before we get up, I actually went for a drive with Tyrone the other day and actually saw the stables in my eyeballs for the first time. I didn't realise there's so much other land round it. What have you got planned for the rest of the land? And the stables, roughly, in my mind, are about a quarter of it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, so look, what we've done is we've just done some early feasibilities in terms of looking at the site and what you could do, in terms of looking at potentially restoring that stable site. You would need to look at then what happened on the other bits of land, which all sort of form one parcel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And does Christchurch NZ own the land at the moment, or who does?
No, council owns
we
land.
don't. Okay. No,
yeah, so it's just a piece of work we've been doing on behalf of council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Question. So, Tyrone, maybe wait there, Kath. That's okay. No, as long as it's short.
Oh, thanks for that. It's really, I mean, I feel how well Christchurch is doing. So, like the vibe is good, so everything you're saying rings very true with me. Just on the Antarctic thing, I mean, that's amazing. So 328 million. So is that like, if I'm doing my sums, that's like about 1% of Christchurch's GDP in a way. Is that about right? So I'm putting you on the spot. Don't worry. Don't need to answer that.
I
could have
should
that
so
wrong.
know that. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Don't quote me on that.
What are the risks, like, it's growing. What are the risk factors there that would kind of put that
it's a really great question. A lot of what we do in the Antarctic is about maintaining the current programs. The US program is crucial to that. So, but it's not the only program that comes through here. We have the Italians, the Koreans, and there are also some other countries that dabble or come through here occasionally during the year. It's maintaining those diplomatic relationships. Pretty tough, because you've got places like Hobart, who is another gateway, who have got much, much more resource to throw at this. And are aggressively targeting them. We do have, the phrase I always use is we should be confident but not complacent. So, but it is, a lot of the work we do is actually maintaining those programs because they are crucial for the New Zealand Antarctic program and for the broader economic benefit.
Can I just have a quick follow-up? It's not directly related, but it's kind of sort of some similar themes. Just on the cruise ship stuff, so noting that you've talked to cruise ship passengers and there have been quite effusive about Christchurch, do we actually ask them about things like their understanding of the impact of the industry on the climate problem and that sort of stuff? Do we get a sense of what their feelings are in that regard and the goals of our city, which actually impact on the Antarctic? Because it's all kind of interrelated.
Cruise is really gnarly. It's a non-binary solution to cruise. So there is no doubt that our destination management plans and our work that we do lobbying with central government and through Cruise New Zealand absolutely recognises the importance of cleaning cruise up. So there is no doubt that it has challenges, and we see that often with the protests that we get fairly regularly in this space. But as you can see, when it's delivering $30 million to the economy, just stopping cruise would also be as bad. We just have a different group of protesters. So it's a transition challenge, like many of these challenges, because you've got to think about the second and third order consequences of making changes. I don't know whether we specifically asked that question of cruise passengers. I could definitely find out. My suspicion is probably not, because we're looking at it from an economic development perspective.
There we go. Kia ora.
Hello, kia ora.
I just have a question about destinations, and particularly around smart cities. Does CNZ have any relationship with the Smart Cities program?
Absolutely.
And how do you integrate it into your platforms?
Oh, so we work with they're a really small but mighty team, your Smart Cities team. I think they really punch above their weight. I think they're pretty incredible. So we work with them very closely. We work with them on things, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is on the Horizons Europe programme. Some of you may be aware of Horizons Europe. It is an EU fund of, and I'm going to get this number wrong, I'm looking at Martin, about 30 million, billion? 30 billion. It's numbers that we can't comprehend, which has 5 pillars. That they're looking for funding, basically initiatives that can help move towards or progress towards these pillars. They're things like there's an aerospace pillar, there's one that's around environment and climate mitigation. New Zealand and Australia are affiliate countries to this program. So as long as we buddy up with European countries to submit proposals, we can actually potentially get a share of some of that funding. We work super closely with your Smart Cities team. We've actually got one bid in at the moment that is currently live. We're waiting to see if we will get it. They often come to us. They work through things like they've got quite good links into a couple of cities in Spain that are really helpful through that as well. Another example would be the GNETS program, which is the Global Network of Sustainable Cities, which is run by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Again, hugely well-funded program, very aligned with our economic ambition. How can we tap into some of those global opportunities? So, yeah, they're great.
That's really good to know. And I did see in that last slide, that attractiveness slide, had the welcome to Ōtautahi thing, which is really nice. A thing that I thought about in regards to smart cities and destination management, obviously, was accessibility and the ability to navigate around the city.
Yeah.
And I do realise that public transport's going to be consolidated in terms of motu move, etc., etc. But I'm wondering if there may be some kind of avenue for us to be able to, say, for example, and this is your job, so I don't want to obviously bring up any ideas, but say, for example, somebody comes in from Ōtautahi and they'd want to know exactly where they need to go or where they can go in terms of routes, attractive options for public enterprise such as Margaret Mayhe, things of the sort. Is there anything like that at the moment that CNZ are looking into in regards to bringing attractions as soon as they come off the plane?
Yes is the short answer. So one of the great things about having the urban development function in Christchurch NZ is that we can link really closely with destination management to look at things like wayfinding and how we look at some of those attractions. That's where some of the magic happens. I'm looking at Kath because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
No worries.
So there are quite a few things that we're looking at in this space. They tend to be more around the city rather than directly from the airport.
Yep.
And they're all driven by the Destination Management Plan, which many of you will remember MB funded all the regional tourism organisations to create destination management plans. They didn't fund any implementation. Now that makes life really challenging. So for all councils across the country, the good news is it's a really good framework that we can use to identify where the gaps are, where the strengths are, the kinds of things we can do. For example, we did an amazing thing last month, a star grazing thing, where we got a big group of media into town and we showcased Christchurch, and then they went down to Mount John and ate 5-star food underneath the stars while star grazing. And that kind of thing comes directly out of the destination management plan, identifying where our strengths are. So yeah, it's live. There are lots of things we can do. And I just want to point out that we're working really well with VO around how we activate the stadium towards the city as well, and how we do wayfinding around that too.
Super passionate
So
about
that, thank you. That's been moved by the Mayor, seconded by Mel. And we've just noted in there in 3, recording our appreciation, noting that Dr. Teresa Asno is retiring from the board, and we are recording our appreciation for her contribution to Christchurch NZ. So that's been moved by the Mayor and seconded by Melanie. So we'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, so we might have a break now, and then Mel will come back and take the chair. So let's say 15 minutes, 25 past 11.
Right, so on to item 12, council-controlled organisations in your reports. I guess we take it as read. Is there anything you wanted to present, Linda? No. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on any of these? Councillor Hanson.
And it'll just be the annual question around the Civic Building Limited and progress around resolving us paying some of the most expensive rent in the city. Has there been any update, any information we can get?
Happy to answer that, councillor. I'll respond as I do all the time that it's not a matter. For Civic Buildings Limited, they have to stand aside in those announcements. I can certainly, as council's tenant, indicate we have made some progress this year. We're still working on that, and we will come back to you with a separate report on that matter, probably early in the new year, given that we're running out of runway this year.
Okay, thank you.
Right, is that all for questions? Have we got a mover? Just checking you're not on the list there, that's all right. Yeah, the schedule, there's that many conflicts. And yeah, Celeste seconds that. So all those in favour say aye. Okay, opposed, and that's carried. Item 13, so CCOs, AGMs, and by written shareholder resolution. So these are AGMs that are not occurring, but doing it by resolution.
That's right.
Yeah. Did you have any comments for any?
No, I mean, they are mostly non-trading companies. The two that are trading have no business to conduct at their AGM.
Yep. Does anyone have any questions about these? Yep, Councillor Hanson. Have you got your microphone on?
Turned it off. Is there thought to some sort of public stakeholder report back? Like if there's no AGM, I'm just mindful of that some of the backlash towards some of the council companies that decided not to have AGMs, and you know some people, especially when there's public sessions like the Port had in Littleton, and then suddenly it just gets cancelled. There's a bit of a backlash from people thinking, well, what's going on? And I mean, I don't know in the past what the attendance has been like at the VO AGM or if it's been public, but I did wonder if there is a way to publicly report back on the companies if it's appropriate. That's all.
Can you respond, Linda?
Yeah. Venues hasn't had a public AGM in the past, but it is planning to start doing that from next year.
Oh, cool. Great, thanks, Linda. Councillor Keown.
Just a small question on the Ellerslie International Flower Show. Why don't we sell it? Or can we sell it, and does it have a value normally? Or are we going to hang on to it and throw the paddles on it in a couple of years and bring it back to life?
The company itself owns the brand, and that's all it has, and I have no line of sight to the intent or the value of that.
Would we not explore if there's someone out there that might want to buy the brand? I mean, what's the point in holding it if we're not going to?
Yeah, we can explore that.
Yeah, so we can explore that. Yeah.
I would have thought it's got to be worth 100K or something. I would have thought.
Yeah, we did try and sell it at the time, and but I think it'd be a good idea too.
Yeah, well, New Zealand doesn't have a premier garden flower show. I mean, Christchurch should have one, but that one, and it should probably be called the Christchurch International.
Not Ellerslie.
Yeah, but we could look to, if there's a promoter in the North Island that wants it.
And if we ever want to do one, we'll just make our own name.
Yeah.
So we don't need to be carrying this.
Yeah.
Like the Garden City International Flower Show.
Did anyone have any other questions about any of the resolutions? No. Okay, have I got a mover for this? You can't, Councillor Skendrick. Yeah, Councillor Keown and Councillor Moore as seconds. Right, all those, are there any debate? All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Carried. I think that's it.
Yep.
Oh, shall I do resolution to exclude the
You
public?
can do that.
Yeah, resolution to exclude the public. I'll move that as seconded. Councillor Harrison Hunt. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Okay, so